the purer the more stable. Siafang. January 26, 2019. Translated by Chinyu and edited by Musa. Let's first look at a natural phenomenon. According to a report by the British Daily Mail on January 22, 2019, in the attic of a resident named Roderick Cooper in Alaska, there are 2 bottles of water in the freezing weather of -22 degrees Celsius, which are still in liquid state, video shows. It is scientifically explained that this is the phenomenon of supercooling, which means that when a liquid is very pure without impurities, the freezing speed will become very slow, and the liquid will continue to remain in the liquid state, without ice crystals, and will not freeze into solid, even it is 22 degrees Celsius below zero or colder. Let's look at another phenomenon. What do we see when babies and children are with wolf, insect, tiger, leopard, and other wild and domestic animals? What we see is that wild animals do not harm babies and children. No matter how wild dogs are, when they are with babies and children, they become docile, even affectionate when they are with babies and children. They not only do not harm babies and children, but also take care of them. Dogs are like this, horses, cattle, sheep are like this, even wild wolves are like this. According to the legend of the city of Rome, when the 15th king of Numitor was reigning, his brother Amulius usurped the throne. For fear of revenge from his brother's descendants, Amulius killed his nephew and forced his niece Silvia to be a priestess who was not allowed to marry. In this way, his brother would have no offspring, and Amulius thought that there would be no crisis in his regime. But his niece Silvia secretly fell in love with the god of war Mars and quietly gave birth to twins. When Amulius learned the news, he ordered the execution of his niece and asked the slave to throw the twins into the Tiber. The river washed the twins to the shore, and their cries led to a female wolf who was drinking water by the river. Instead of harming the twins, she lovingly licked them dry and brought them back to her cave and fed them with her own milk. In 1920, in a small town called Midnapal in the northeast of Kolkata, India, people found 2 human-like monsters walking on all fours trailing behind 3 big wolves. The 2 human-like monsters turned out to be 2 naked girls. It was later confirmed that the 2 girls were raised by wolves since childhood. By the 1950s, it has been discovered scientifically that 30 children were raised by beasts, 5 by bears, 1 by leopards, 14 by wolves, as well as by monkeys and sheep. Let's look at another phenomenon. There are many kinds of gemstones in nature. No matter what kind of gemstones, their value and price are related to their purity. The higher the purity, the higher the value and the price. This also applies to people. The purer and more beautiful they are, the more likable they are. The more complex they are, the more they will be hated by others. To sum up, we can come to the conclusion that the purer a thing is, the less susceptible it is to external factors, just like the rare gas helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon, and radon in the periodic table chemical elements. Similarly, the purer a thing is, the higher its stability is. It can also be concluded that the higher the purity of things, the easier for it to get the love of the environment, that is the care and cherishment of the environment. Hence, we can understand why Jesus Christ said that if we want to enter the kingdom of the greatest Creator, we must become a child, and we can also understand why Lao Tzu taught us that we must return to the state of infancy if we want to unite with the Tao. Because only by returning to the state of infancy, becoming a child, can you be qualified to enter the kingdom of heaven. Let's extend this principle. If you want to enter heaven, the key is to become pure. Only pure things can show their nature. Nature is Buddha, nature is celestial. Showing nature is equivalent to becoming celestial and Buddha. Celestial and Buddha will definitely enter heaven. Babies and children are very pure, and what they expose are completely nature. So even a ferocious wolf will not hurt them but will love them. Therefore, whether one can enter heaven or not has nothing to do with learning, knowledge and wisdom, how many classic books you have learned. It has nothing to do with religion, how many good deeds you have done, how much truth you have understood and spread. It has nothing to do with kowtowing, burning incense or making pilgrimage. The key is whether a life is pure. In this way, the content of self-cultivation and self-refinement is very simple. What we need to do is to let ourselves become pure, return to the state of infancy. So, we know that the more complicated people are, the farther away they are from heaven. The purer, the more stable. Is it a universal law? Let's analyze it. Most people will have friends. At the beginning, the friendship is very pure, so they can maintain a friendly relationship. But gradually, the friendly relationship cannot be maintained. Why? The reason is that the friendship is becoming more and more impure. If interests are added to friendship, the friendship will become complicated and impure, so it can no longer be maintained. Many people set up companies and business. At the beginning, the company developed smoothly, but as time passed, the company began to decline and close. What is the reason? The reason is that the company has become impure. Some companies began to marry politics, some companies began to get involved in the real estate business, some companies began to get involved in the stock market, some industrial companies became interested in the cultural field, and some companies that only provided food began to engage in business of restaurants, breeding and planting. Although they are consistent with the content of providing food, their scope of business is different after all, so they will eventually decline. Let's look at the social fields. Romania, Yugoslavia, the Soviet Union, Venezuela, Vietnam, and China, all are socialism. The result is they all have almost collapsed. China's socialism is also on the verge of collapse. The reason is that none of them is pure. Socialism is socialism. If you mix it with the market, family, and party interest, and corruption, it will surely collapse. Proof. Socialism is definitely superior to capitalism, but if you make the socialism rather impure, how can it be better than capitalism? Collapse is inevitable, because it violates the rule of the purer, the more stable. Flies always find the cracked eggs. Why? Because if there is no crack on the egg, it can keep relatively pure, so flies won't bite it. Once there is crack on the egg cannot keep pure, flies will certainly come to bite. In the process of founding Lifechanyuan, I found out that people with more complex thoughts are more likely to be disturbed by external factors and gradually leave, while those with simpler thoughts are more likely to remain. This fact also proves the rule that the purer the more stable. Thus, we can get another conclusion: for a person, the more knowledgeable, the more complex the thinking, the greater the ability, the more mindful and smarter, the more experienced, the more deeply involved in society, the more flexible, the more he is unreliable, because he or she violates the rule of the purer, the more stable. He might bow to you today, and part ways with you tomorrow. Thus we can get one more conclusion: that the more complex one is, the most silly and stupid the person is in the world.